fix it. Well, can we fix it later, like a couple months from now? And they put it on the risk rank and they play games with it. So if it gets over here in the dangerous section, then they go, well, maybe we should do something about it. Or maybe we can circumvent it, bypass it or whatever. But they all do that. They don't want to totally maintain everything all the time because it costs money. And they're not really in the petroleum business, they're in the money business.
Yes.
And they just make their money with petroleum. So they risk rank all their maintenance needs. And a lot of times they'll postpone something, they'll say, listen, we can get that during the turnaround. And the turnaround, they come like every 3-4 years. The thing they love to do when they get into the turnaround is they want to be on time. Get this thing done, wrapped up, and going. Because the guys over in the brick building, they get bonuses out of that. And so, they might have a few items left on the work ticket that, we don't need to do that now, we'll get it next opportunity, whatever that might be. So they'll postpone it, they play games with that stuff. That's just how, and all those oil companies, even though they have different names, they all think the same. They're like cookie cutters, they just behave and think identical. It's crazy.
Well, I got a feeling our time's up.
Their time is not, we have set on the agenda until about 8:20 for more discussion, and we're at just about 8 o'clock. So we have time for more discussion and people to ask questions and look at the different issues. But before y'all jump in, and it will be one at a time, you go ahead first.
Well, I was just going to say, the one thing I just want to leave you with was Linda and I had talked a little bit about our fire. And I just want to leave you with this, that most everybody here goes to work. I don't know what Dennis was talking about, but the day of the Equilon fire, I was on that day. And I was on the fire brigade as well. So we were called over to the Coker, well, we were right there, we saw it all go. So we had to run, get our fire gear on, everything, get over to our spots to try putting this thing out. And I'll forever have imprinted in my head, in my mind. I was looking at a ladder cage, and I thought it was just a pile of burnt conduit in this ladder cage. And I was told to put the hose over on it, and as I did, the black of what I thought was conduit turned pink. It was a body that was stuck in the ladder cage. I'll never forget that. And as long as we are here, and we can do something about safety, and not only in our place, but in everybody's workplace that we got right here. That's the number one thing about these jobs. If the job shuts down, they lose $1 million, I don't give a damn. If everybody at this table gets to go home safe, that's what matters. And those, in our case, those 6 didn't get to go home. That was the day before Thanksgiving, too, by the way. Not that that makes any difference, but it sure hit me on Thanksgiving Day. And it's the same with Dennis's. It was real close to Easter. And that's why we're here. This bullshit thing about us rating other crafts, that had nothing to do with this strike. This strike was about safety. And I'll stand up to anybody and defend that.
Well, I think about safety and about profits and what's more important, our
Yeah,
lives
absolutely.
or the profit of the oil company. When I was in Boilermakers many years ago, and when they made the pipeline, the oil pipeline in Alaska, and the companies that did that figured they could kill 500 people on the pipeline before they would start losing money over it. And I think it's the same sort of attitude in the oil refineries today, and to a lesser or more degree in every one of our jobs. So, and it affects not only you at work, but our whole community. So I want to start out with really a big, big thank you to Doug and Tom and Dennis for the long fight that you've been fighting and continue to fight, and for sharing it with us tonight. And then we'll have some discussion. Everybody's got a million questions and 100,000 comments, and we don't have too much time, but we want to get to the issues. So put your hands up and we'll go around. I'm going to start first with people who haven't spoken. So over here.
Yeah. Again, thank you. That was really helpful. My name is David. As you were telling the history, I just wanted to learn more about in the 80s when the losses were happening in each of the contracts. What were the dynamics that were going on that were eroding your power in the workplace?
You mean, why didn't we stand up to it then?
No, not why didn't you stand up, but what was going on at the bargaining table that was leading to those losses? Like,
The company's trying to contract out our work, and that was the biggest thing they wanted. And Tom was the chairman of the committee at the time,
Well, you know what I mean. Okay. I was getting to be the chairman for the longest strike in Texaco's history.
But I mean, you can speak to the point, that was,
Yeah, that's what it was. They just wanted to do away with all of us. But because we had no say in staffing, through attrition, that's how they did it. And they got away with it all those years, for, what, 30 years.
I think that approach is pretty common, where you say, if you're not gonna, we're not gonna replace any jobs from people, so people won't lose their jobs. So when you go to sign contracts, well, your job is safe, so.
Exactly.
My union's done.
Pretty hard to justify walking out on the line for a job that isn't yours.
We have Brad, and then David, and then David.
Okay, what I would ask is, how safe could you get? If you were to bring your safety all the way up to snuff, be proactive, the company was down completely, how safe would it be? Is it still gonna be dangerous with explosions and shit?
Well, I know that after this explosion that we had, I talked to one of Patty Murray's aides, and Patty Murray had put together a Senate subcommittee to examine refinery safety. And they invited a bunch of people to come to those. Labor people, insurance people, industry people. Industry didn't send anybody, by the way. But the insurance companies did, and there's only a couple of insurance companies in the world that will insure refineries. And one of them came and they said that the refineries, the insurance rates for U.S. oil companies is about 5 times higher than their European counterparts because of the way they're run. You can look it up there. They have a different standard. They have to prove that they are proactive in their safety approach, or they won't be issued a license to run. So it's a different approach. They do still have problems. I know they had a problem in France. They had an explosion in a refinery in France, but I don't know all the, I'm not sure about the answer to your question. I know they do have some incidents, but it's considerably better than this country.
I don't know if there any correlation has been done on the subject of the price of oil, but we've seen the price per barrel drop significantly over the last 8 or 10 months, and I'm wondering if, with the layoffs in the industry, how much the companies are going to start ignoring some of these safety factors in order to hit their bottom line, now that they're not going to be making as much profit as they used to.
Well, their whole profit is predicated on margins. What they buy a barrel of oil for and what they sell gas, a gallon of gas at. But I will tell you this, that in 1984 we hired an economist because Texaco was going after us, saying that if we give these guys a raise, the price of gas is going to go sky high up to probably $1.25 a gallon or so. And so we had an economist figure it out. And our wages versus the price of gas, if they raise the price of gas 1 penny at the pump, this was in 1984, They could have given everybody in the oil industry 144% wage increase. So, I don't know if that answers your question or not, Dave, but little tidbit for you there. How insignificant our
I think
wages and
like
benefits are.
maybe one nickel pays the wages. It's very insignificant. If we all worked for free, gas would go down to like 4 cents or something. So,
Yeah, I was just wondering if there are any cutbacks because of the drop in the price per barrel would affect you, or that doesn't get factored in.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
One thing I was gonna mention about the price of crude oil. Most businesses, if their price of their raw material goes up, their profits go down until they're able to pass the additional cost on to the consumers. But if you watch the oil companies, when the price of their raw material goes up, guess what? Their profits go through the roof. Is that just a coincidence? I don't think so.
I hear things like Bakken crude costing maybe $70, $80 a barrel, but they're only able to sell it for 50, so somewhere that drop in price has to be made up somewhere.
I'm not, you
I
know,
don't think they would do it if they're losing that much money.
they would just cap it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they weren't, matter of fact, and then of course right now Shell is fighting a Tesoro, BP and ConocoPhillips. BP and ConocoPhillips operate up in Black County, out in Cherry Point, Ferndale. And Tesoro, all three of them already have the whole facility in for receiving Bakken crude. Shell doesn't. They were sitting around, thought they'd be the wise guy in the neighborhood, and wait and see what happened. Well, everybody else got theirs in, and now Shell's stuck having to fill out all the environmental protection, everything. And they're crying like a bunch of third graders that got their erasers stolen.
I just wanted to ask, with all these safety issues and the fatigue and overwork issues and other things that are raised during the strike as the chief things, would you consider this somewhat to be a victory or a wash, or how would you rate it as far as how much gain you made out of it?
Well, I'm from old school. This is just speaking for me, but I see a few other gray hairs here, so probably feel the same way. I don't think you ever win. You want to, but I think the best is a wash, you know. I mean, there's so many things that we would all love to see in our contracts, but since the 80s, we haven't seen them, so I would say it's a wash. They do have a little better language now to address the staffing. That's a good thing. I don't know.
Oh, could you just go over, you were throwing out some safety numbers as far as like, your trade, the union side and accidents, and then you gave out a number as the total number of accidents over those years. And then you also gave out a number of how much of the industry that you guys have.
Yeah.
And so between all those, I was kind of getting the idea that the non-union side of the industry has a much higher accident rate than the union
Much higher.
side. About what number would that be? Because it's just off the top of my head, it seems huge.
Well, yeah, well, the USW covered facilities from 2005 to 2015. We had 56 deaths, fatalities. From 2002, this is only 2002 to 2007, a 5-year span in industry-wide. Now, this is covered plus non-union, was 598 were killed.
And then how much of the industry does
We
the
have
USW
I
control?
believe it's 69%, something like that.
So I just wanted to point that out, that, you know, the numbers he gave were much smaller for the union side over 10 years. And then for the industry as a whole was only over 5 years, but it was astronomically larger. And they already control a huge part of the industry. So the union side is already much, much safer than the non-union side.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah, relatively speaking, so. And then also goes, I mean, to your concern about getting the contract work out, because, you know, the accident rate of contract work is That's the non-union side, the astronomically dangerous side. You know, you're like, well, get those guys away from me, please.
Exactly, exactly. They're in there killing us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Linda?
What can we in labor and the community do to help you guys win safer refineries now that the strike is over? But, and also, I mean, one thing I do want to do is talk about the jurisdictional thing, and that we in labor have got to make sure that doesn't happen again. You know, and I think be able to talk to the issues that you've spoken to tonight about I mean, I appreciate the education that was done tonight about the contractors, the jurisdictional, and I feel like the bosses actually probably used the jurisdictional dispute to their total advantage. But anyways, what do you think that we can do in the community and labor to help? And, or other people might have ideas too, but.
I don't know. The agreement's in, it's a 4-year contract.
Yeah.
I guess one thing I would suggest is that I think that we can go back to our unions and our communities, and talk, because to me, you know, our whole economy runs on the industry. You got the oil industry gets huge subsidies, and the fact that, you know, these oil kings are able to run refineries in this way, to me it's a community issue. Anyways, I think that we should be raising some heat on these guys from the outside.
Well, and in our community, you do see a lot of that, because again, we're a small community, you know, Anacortes, we're on an island,
Yeah.
you know. It's pretty small. Skagit Valley, is relatively small. And you're seeing a whole lot of community awareness now. The problem is, it's kind of like the old coal towns back in Virginia, you know, is that, hey, you know, that's the company, you know, and, you know, to open the company store, and that's where everybody's money's going. But we're seeing community action. We saw just, when was that, about 2 weeks ago, they had a release. They were working on our flare system at Shell, and they had a release, and I happened to be driving back onto the island about that time. And of course, 34 years out there, I pretty much knew exactly where it was. Well, I'm sure everybody's familiar with LaConner. Okay, well, the Swinomish tribe is across the slough from the town of LaConner. And several of their elders were sent to the hospital, breathing problems. And so there's a lawsuit going right now. The Swinomish have headed up this lawsuit, wanting to find out what it was, how it happened, what you're going to do to prevent it from happening again, and they want to be taken care of. And so that's just the last couple of weeks. And so I think there's a lot of awareness going there. In Anacortes, there's a lot of awareness, you know. I mean, we're sitting there literally, we look right at the refineries. And but as far as what everybody else can do, just be aware, and in your dealings with each local and everything, just, you know, ask for support.
Could I just help answer that? I know it's part of this. I would just say what we could do is probably go back to our local unions and encourage them to get educated before they go to the rumor mill. You know,
Good.
I mean,
Thank you.
get educated, you know, talk to the guys right off before you start listening to everything that's flying around.
That's good,
Yeah.
yeah.
I appreciate
That is
that.
good, absolutely.
Gil, did you have, I have Gil and then Kirk and then
Couple
Jay.
things.
I'm sure it's a given that eventually the company will try to take back what you gained in terms of the contract.